A 10-year-old boy with a fake leg walked with a limp into a busy coffee shop. Every table, he wouldn't have said no to him. We finally stopped in front of a biker, covered in tattoos and scars. His voice was very quiet. "Can I sit here?" Everyone else said no. What he learned in the next 60 seconds would show an evil so terrible it would shock an entire neighborhood. This is Marcus and Ethan's story, and it doesn't end the way you think. Before we continue, please subscribe and let us know where you're watching from the comments. Enjoy the story. The coffee shop. The Copper Beans sat on the corner of Madison and 3rd like it had for 20 years. Brick walls you could see, furniture that didn't match, and coffee that actually tasted like someone cared. It was the kind of place where people who came all the time knew the workers by name, where Sunday mornings meant full tables and the comfortable sound of weekend talking. But on this particular Sunday, that comfortable sound stopped. The door made a chiming sound, and a 10-year-old boy walked inside. He moved carefully, limping with each step. His left leg was replaced by a badly fitted fake leg that clearly hurt him with every movement. His clothes were too big on a body that was too skinny, and his eyes looked around the shop like a small animal looking for shelter. He wasn't looking for the bathroom. He wasn't looking for his parents. He was looking for a table. Any table. Any stranger who might be kind. The first table, he went and had a young couple on a date. Coffee, drinks, and pastries between them. Before Ethan could speak, the woman shook her head and turned her body away. Not welcome. Not here. His shoulders dropped, but he moved on. The second table had 3 businessmen looking at papers. They saw him coming and suddenly acted very interested in their papers, pretending he didn't exist. The third table had a mother with 2 children. When Ethan reached them, the woman pulled her kids closer and said loud enough for others to hear, "Where are his parents?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just judging. The boy's face turned red. His good leg shook, but he kept moving. The man in the corner. In the back corner sat a man most people stayed away from. His name was Marcus, 41 years old, 6 feet 3 inches tall, with arms covered in tattoos that told stories he'd never talk about. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, another along his jaw. His leather vest had patches that made people cross the street. Hell's Angels patches earned through loyalty, blood, and years on the road. He was drinking black coffee and reading a book, minding his own business, being in his corner without bothering anyone. Then he heard footsteps stop in front of his table. Ethan stood there, so close he could see dirt on his cheek, the way his chest went up and down from being tired. His voice came out barely above a whisper. "Please, can I sit here?" Everyone else said no. Marcus didn't wait. He pushed the chair across from him out with his boot. "Yeah, kid. Sit." Relief came over his face. He moved toward the chair, his fake leg dragging a little with each step, but his legs wobbled and he stumbled. Marcus caught him before he fell, holding him steady with hands that were gentle even though they had scars. As he sat down in the seat, his sleeve moved. That's when Marcus saw them. Yellow bruises spreading across his arm. Purple marks going around his upper arm in a pattern. He could tell they were fingerprints. Adult-sized fingerprints that had grabbed hard enough to leave their mark. His jaw got tight. He'd spent 15 years on the streets. 15 years in a world where he'd learned to read situations most people missed. When a child shows up alone, bruised, and asking strangers for help, something is very wrong. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Ethan," he whispered. "You hungry, Ethan?" He nodded, eyes wide, like he didn't believe someone was actually asking. Marcus ordered him a sandwich, chips, and hot chocolate. When the food came, Ethan stared at it like it might disappear. "Go ahead," Marcus said quietly. "It's yours." He ate like someone who hadn't seen food in days, not messy and excited like kids usually eat. He ate like every bite might be his last. His hands shook as he lifted the sandwich, his eyes looking up every few seconds to make sure Marcus was still there. The truth comes out. Finally, between bites, he spoke. His voice was stronger this time, though still quiet. "I'm not supposed to be here." Marcus put his coffee down. "Where are you supposed to be?" "Home." The word came out flat, empty, but I couldn't stay there anymore. "Why not?" His hands started shaking. The sandwich fell onto the plate. His breathing got faster, his eyes filled with tears he'd been holding back for too long. Then it all came out. Tears poured down his face, silent at first, streaming over those bruises. Then came the sobs, big and desperate. "He hurts me," Ethan said through his tears. "My uncle. After my parents died in the accident, after I came to live with him, everything changed." Marcus's blood went cold. "How'd you lose your leg, Ethan?" He looked down, shame flooding his face. He said it was an accident. We were in the garage, and he was backing out his truck, but he knew I was there. He saw me, and he didn't stop. The words hung in the air like poison. An accident. That's what he told people. Except it wasn't. Not when you see someone and keep going. But the worst part, Ethan continued, his voice breaking. "I heard him on the phone last week. He told someone, if something happens to the kid, I get everything. The house, the insurance money, all of it." Marcus sat perfectly still. But inside him, something was waking up. This wasn't just abuse. This was planned murder, slow and thought out, hidden behind, acting like a sad uncle taking in his nephew who lost his parents. An accident that took Ethan's leg, and now a plan to take his life. "Ethan," Marcus's voice got lower, steady but firm. "I need you to tell me everything. I'm not going anywhere." It was a promise. When Marcus said it, Ethan seemed to understand. He meant every word. "He locks the pantry," Ethan whispered. "Says I don't deserve to eat if I can't do my chores, but I'm 10. I can't do everything he wants. He got the insurance money from my parents, $500,000. But he said it's all gone, that I cost too much money. But I see the new truck, the new TV. He's not broke." Marcus's fists clenched under the table. He knew exactly what was happening. This man saw his nephew not as a person, but as a problem, and worse, as someone who stood between him and complete control of that money. Taking action, Marcus stood up slowly. Ethan's eyes went wide with fear. That look of another adult walking away. "You're not leaving me, are you?" His voice cracked. He got down on his knees until he was at his eye level. "I'm not leaving you ever, but I'm going to make sure that man never hurts you again. Trust me." He walked outside and pulled out his phone. He called a number he'd called 1,000 times. "Brick, it's Marcus." The voice on the other end was rough. "What's up, brother?" "Child abuse. Possible murder plan. I need every brother within 20 miles of the Copper Bean now." There was a pause. "What's going on?" "A kid who needs protection. And we're not waiting for the system to fail him. Say no more. We're coming." Within 20 minutes, motorcycles began arriving. Hell's Angels from 3 counties. Men who'd gotten the call and dropped everything because a brother needed them. They rolled in like a storm. Leather jackets with the same patch Marcus wore. Shiny chrome in the sunlight. Engines roaring with power and purpose. Brick walked straight to Marcus. He was older, maybe 55, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen everything twice. "Fill me in." Marcus told him everything. The bruises, the starvation, the accident that took his leg, the insurance money, the phone call he heard. By the time he finished, Brick's face had gone cold. "Where's the boy?" "Inside at my table." "And the uncle?" "Still at home, as far as I know." Brick nodded, then turned to the group of brothers. "We do this right. We gather proof. We make sure it sticks. Building the case." What happened next wasn't chaos. It was precise. 2 members went door to door in Ethan's neighborhood. They asked questions in calm, measured voices. Turnout people had noticed. They noticed a lot. One neighbor said she'd wondered why she hadn't seen the boy playing outside in months. Another admitted he'd heard yelling, screaming, actually, but hadn't called anyone because he didn't want to cause trouble. One woman said she'd called Child Protective Services twice. Twice. Both times, nothing happened. Inside the coffee shop, 3 others sat with Ethan, asking careful questions. They wrote down every detail, dates, times, what his uncle said and did, everything. Another member, a former police officer named Daniels, made calls. He got someone from CPS on the line, not a receptionist, but an actual investigator. He explained the facts in the language of law, making it clear this wasn't a request. This was telling them that if they didn't act right away, there would be consequences. The investigator promised to be there within the hour. Marcus sat with Ethan the entire time, holding his hand. His brothers worked around them with quiet efficiency, each one knowing their job without needing to be told. This was what the club did best. Protect their own. And Ethan was theirs. Now, one of the brothers, a man called Ghost, who'd worked construction with Marcus for years, sat down across from him. He had a daughter about Ethan's age, and his eyes were wet as he looked at the boy. "My kid's got the same shoes," Go said quietly, looking at Ethan's worn sneakers. "Size 4, right? I got a bunch she outgrew. Good ones. I'll bring them by." Ethan looked up confused. "You don't have to." "Yeah, I do," Go said firmly. "That's what family does." Another brother, Tank, who ran a car repair shop on the east side, leaned against the booth. He was huge, 6 feet 5 inches tall, and built like his name suggested, with hands that could crush a man's skull, but were now holding a notepad with surprising gentleness. "Listen, Marcus," Tank said, "when this is over, when the kid needs stuff, doctor visits, therapy, whatever, you let me know. My shop's flexible. We take care of our own, and that means you don't do this alone." Marcus nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He'd ridden with these men for 15 years. He'd seen them in bar fights and funerals, at weddings, and in jail cells. But this was different. This was them at their best. When someone helpless needed help, they showed up. No questions asked. The barista, a young woman named Sophie, who'd been working at the Copper Bean for 3 years, brought over fresh hot chocolate without being asked. She sat it down in front of Ethan with a gentle smile. "On the house, sweetheart," she said. Then looking at Marcus, she added, "What you're doing, thank you. My brother went through something similar when we were kids. Nobody helped, so thank you." When Ethan finally fell asleep in the booth, tired from crying and telling his story, Marcus stayed. He stayed through the afternoon and into the evening. He carefully moved the boy so his head rested against his shoulder, and he didn't move even when his arm went numb, even when his back started hurting from the awkward position. Justice arrives. When the police arrived at the uncle's house that evening, he was in the garage working on his new truck. The truck he'd bought with money that should have been used for his nephew's care. The same truck that had accidentally run over Ethan's leg. He didn't see it coming. The officers read him his rights right there in the driveway. His face went from confusion to anger to fear. He started to argue, to explain, to use that concerned guardian voice that had worked before. But the officers weren't listening. They put handcuffs on him and walked him to the police car while neighbors watched. The police searched the house. They found Ethan's room. Barely a room, more like a storage closet with a mattress on the floor. On the outside of the door was a lock, the kind you use to keep people in. The room smelled of wetness and sadness. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, controlled by a switch on the outside. The walls were bare except for water stains. In one corner sat a cardboard box with 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and underwear with holes in them. That was everything Ethan owned in the world. One of the officers, a veteran with 20 years on the force, had to step outside. He'd seen crime scenes that would make most people sick. But something about this room, this deliberate cruelty done to a child, made his hands shake with anger. In the kitchen, they found the pantry locked shut with a padlock. But what made it worse was what they found next to the refrigerator, a detailed chart written in the uncle's handwriting, keeping track of exactly what Ethan had eaten and when. Portions measured down to the ounce. Meals skipped as punishment. Days marked where the boy had been given nothing but water. This was planned starvation, documented, calculated. The uncle had been keeping records of his nephew's suffering like a scientist running an experiment. In the living room, they found photographs, framed pictures of the uncle with Ethan's parents smiling at a barbecue that must have been taken years ago. The uncle had kept them displayed, keeping up the act that he was the sad brother-in-law, the caring uncle stepping up when tragedy struck. Meanwhile, just down the hall, he was slowly murdering his brother's son. In the uncle's office, they found the insurance documents. The policy on Ethan's parents had paid out $500,000. Bank statements showed most of it was still there, carefully hidden in accounts the uncle had set up in his own name. There were spreadsheets, too, showing his debts before the accident and his plans for the money after Ethan was gone. They found more documents, too. Papers showing the uncle had been in debt before the accident, behind on house payments, credit cards maxed out, papers showing he'd been about to lose everything. And then his brother and sister-in-law had died, and suddenly he was the guardian of their only child, and the person who got their estate. But the most damning evidence was hidden in a locked drawer in his desk. The police had to break it open, and inside they found a journal. Page after page of entries dating back to just after the accident that took Ethan's leg. The entries were chilling in how cold they were. The uncle wrote about Ethan like he was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. He detailed his plans. Reduce food intake gradually. Make it look like the boy was just a picky eater. Make sure the fake leg was uncomfortable enough that Ethan would avoid activity leading to more health problems. Write down behavior problems to establish a pattern that would explain any injuries. And on the last page, dated just 3 days before Ethan ran away, was the most horrifying entry of all. Kids getting too weak to last much longer. Another month, maybe 2, then I'm free and clear. Nobody suspects a thing. This wasn't just abuse. This was murder by neglect, planned and done with cold precision, hidden behind the act of a struggling guardian doing his best. Through the hospital, Ethan was taken to Children's Medical Center that evening. The paramedics were gentle, spoke to him in soft voices. Marcus rode with him, his hand never leaving his. At the hospital, doctors examined him. A children's doctor documented every bruise. A bone surgeon examined his fake leg. 2 sizes too small, causing infected sores. The amputation itself had been done badly. The follow-up care, non-existent. We're going to fix this, Dr. Mitchell said gently. Get you fitted properly. You'll be able to run again. Ethan's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Marcus stayed through the night. When nurses tried to convince him to go home, he shook his head. I told him I wasn't leaving. I keep my promises. Around 3 a.m., Ethan woke up screaming. Nightmares. Marcus was instantly at his side. You're safe. He can't get you here. I dreamed he found me. Ethan whispered. The truck. Marcus pulled his chair closer. That's not going to happen. There are 30 men outside this hospital right now, keeping watch. And when you leave here, you're coming home with me. You really want me? Ethan asked, his voice breaking. Even though I'm broken? Marcus leaned forward until he was eye level with Ethan. You're not broken. You're brave. You survived something that would have destroyed most adults. And yeah, kid, I really want you. I'd be lucky to be your family. Ethan cried then, but it was the kind of crying that comes with healing. The courtroom. 3 weeks later, Judge Patricia Chun looked at Ethan in the courtroom. What happened to you was not your fault. Now it's time to decide where you go from here. Is there someone you feel safe with? Ethan's hand wrapped around Marcus. He looked up at him first, then turned to the judge. His voice was clear and certain. Him. He saved me. Judge Chin smiled. Mr. Stone, do you understand what you're taking on? This isn't temporary. This is forever. Marcus looked down at Ethan. I know, ma'am, and I want that. Then, that's exactly what's going to happen. 6 months later. 6 months later, the brothers threw Ethan a birthday party at Marcus' house. Balloons, streamers, a 3-layer cake with blue frosting, presents piled high. Everyone was there. The whole chapter, their families, children running and laughing. When they sang Happy Birthday, Ethan stood in front of that cake with a smile that wouldn't quit. Someone asked what he wished for. Already got it, he said. When the brothers started their motorcycles all together, 30 engines roaring together, Ethan laughed from somewhere deep inside. Marcus steadied him when he wobbled. Ethan wrapped his arms around Marcus's neck and held tight. He whispered so quietly he almost didn't hear it over the idling motorcycles. I'm home. 2 words. That's all it took. 2 words that meant everything.